What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Nesler. We come to you each and every week to talk to you about the business of moto. Guests in the industry that have done incredible things, guests in the industry that are building incredible things, and sometimes even special guests from outside the industry that can bring you some incredible knowledge to help you build your moto career. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. We got a great guest for you today. Before we dive in, though, just a reminder to be sure to go to racerxonline.com /Moto Marketing to check out the latest promotion RacerX has going on. They always have a lot of great things in store for you. You can always expect some type of prize or collectible or limited edition something for renewing, subscribing. Sometimes you can even get a subscription for a friend. Also, we're batting the idea around of changing the name of the show up and rebranding it because, as I've said before, what it was intended to be is not really what it became. More of a proper name for this show would be the Business of Moto. So all of our guests that we bring on have done some pretty incredible things in the sport and really want to tell their story about, their business and inside the moto industry. So kind of bear with us as we work with RacerX through that transition. But for now, it's the same old great show that you guys love so much. So, hey, today's guest is somebody that I've gotten to know over the last, several months. I've known who she is for years. Very respected individual in the industry who's done a lot of really, really cool things. We're actually collaborating on a project for our e-bike race team, and wanted to have her on today. And it's somebody that you all know as well. We got Christina Denney with us today from Roost Denney Designs. Former team manager, done a lot with Team USA. She's doing some stuff with AMA now, just a lot of stuff going on. And wanted Christina to come on and tell her story because she's definitely got a unique one that I don't think has been told yet. So, Christina, thanks for making time for us and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Luke. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, everybody knows who you are. You've done some really incredible things and from, where I learned about you was just from the, your time managing, the race team, and then obviously you have Roost MX, and now you're back at the races and whatnot. But let's kind of start from the beginning and talk about how did all of this get started? Was it through Roost? Was it through the team? Can you just take us back to the beginning as far as how Christina got her foot into the industry? Were you just a fan to begin with? Let's kind of go from there.
Yeah, no problem. It's kind of a longer story, but I think the short of it, when I met my husband back in 1990, local Georgia, racing local tracks here. He wasn't racing at the time because he was just recovering from a broken femur and from when he was 16 and just doing some small stuff. And once he started racing again, just going to the races on the weekend, tenting it out, doing all the local Georgia stuff and just having a good time with it. And from, I was born in Fort Lauderdale. I was a beach girl. Didn't really have anything to do with motocross. Although when I was 8 or 9, my dad took me to a Supercross in South Florida somewhere. And I wish I knew where it was and what it was, but I knew I was hooked then. But I asked my dad, get me a dirt bike. And we lived 8 miles from the beach. So it wasn't a dirt bike community or town or anything. So that kind of went out the window. And then when I met Chris, it kind of, there was a little traction there from that. And then we just started hanging out and going to these races. And then fast forward to the late 90s, we started our Denney Designs company, which was a sign company, nothing to do with moto. We had gotten kind of out of moto after he got hurt pretty bad in the 95. And it kind of just stemmed off of a wakeboarding need that we were involved in. And, we thought we'd get our feet wet on that side, which we did, and still have a lot of good friends in that wakeboarding community and do a lot of stuff still there. But the Denney Design stuff we started getting a lot of requests from people to do their trailer in the Georgia area. And, do trailers, and they, wanted us to do bike graphics, and we really weren't interested in that side of it at the time. And just so conversing from some friends, we said, okay, well, we'll just do minis. So, we kind of tackled that little mini market, and that was short-lived. And then we started getting into big bikes, and kind of the rest is history from there. But the being involved in the moto side, I think it's, especially for Chris, there was always kind of, like he really enjoyed motocross and the family and the community. And then once I started really getting knee deep into going to races and seeing the families and the communities and all these people gathering at it was just that attracted me more than anything. And then obviously just meeting people in the industry, and it was just kind of hooked from there.
Yeah. So really the business, I guess similar to mine, where, we were working with, different markets, and then we had an interest in the sport, and we started to move a little bit into that slowly, and then it became a whole new thing. That sounds kind of how it was with yours, and you guys still do signs and whatnot. So, but you have this subset of your main business that is moto focused, but you're still juggling a lot of different niches and industries within your Denney Designs business as well, right? It's not just moto.
Correct. I mean, locally, everybody around us here locally knows us as Denney Designs. We do have moto customers that do come through that are local, and there's nothing on the building that says Roost MX, but cool. Locally we're we're the sign company, and but a lot of that stems over to what we are able to offer on the moto side.
One of the things I've always been intrigued with by you and your husband, and before I got to know you, I always had this question of, okay, she has this graphics company, but then you became so connected and respected in the industry that somehow you acquired a team manager position of a team. Like, I've never fully connected those dots, and I feel like that's a super interesting story. Do you mind sharing that? How did you get into the sport and connected well enough that you kind of got this team dumped in your lap that all of a sudden you wake up one day and now you're managing it? What was that?
Yeah, it wasn't like I sought out and applied to be a team manager. So Rock River Power Sports in Wisconsin was our first dealer that we worked with in the early 2000s, maybe like 2002 or 2003. And we developed a really good relationship with him on the dealer side, friends and whatnot, and, rebranded his company and got him the exposure that he was looking for. And so fast forward to 2009, he's like, hey, I want to do a pro team. And we're like, whoa, okay. Good luck, kind of thing. And we said, well, you don't want to be involved? I said, well, not really. We're really kind of marketed to the amateur motocross, and that's what we know. We don't know pro racing other than being a fan. So he said, well, Mike being the sales guy that he is, he said, think about it over the weekend. Like, so we said, okay. So we thought about it over the weekend, and, we thought about all the work that we've put in to rebrand him, and we just didn't want another company,
right,
or graphics company come in. And team manager wasn't even a thought about at the time. It was more or less, do we want to be involved on the graphics side? And it was just Weston Pike at the time. I mean, one rider, Kyle Chisholm, was coming on too after he'd finished his Germany races. And, we're like, we know who these people are, but, we don't know anything about that. So we had decided, let's do the graphics. We don't want some other company come in and just rebrand or kind of take everything away. So we started doing the graphics, and really the there's a lot, it's not just motocross graphics. We said we'd wrap the semi, we would do all the, at the time his awning wasn't even a barrier awning. It was just a cantilever awning. So there was no barrier. We had to do these tables. It was so janky, but we made it work.
Yeah.
But we printed banner table covers to, get the brand. And, so, I mean, literally all this was in like a matter of 2 weeks. Anaheim is coming up. We got the semi mid-December. We literally just had a crash course on pro Supercross marketing and all this stuff. So the week of Anaheim, I said to the owner, I said, when are you going? Like, when are you going to be there? Because all this stuff needs to get set up, and I need to tell you how it needs to be set up. Well, he's like, well, I'm not going. So you're not going.
Oh, wow.
Someone had, I even knew, like, someone had to be there. So he's like, well, can you go? I said, well, sure. So it literally turned into me going to the race, setting up, what I knew, okay, makeshift what we could. And then Chris came out to the next race, and And then I met the guys at Yamaha at the second round, Keith McCarty and Jimmy Perry and all those guys. And they're like, what's going on? And I said, well, this is who I am. This is what is intended to be. But they're like, well, we need somebody here, races, and we think you could do that. We'll help you. So turned into team manager. And,
that's wild.
Wow. And, so, I mean, I still learned up until I was leaving, but I learned a lot that year. And having Chris really was the co-team manager with me, but he was so much of the logistics when it came to the truck. And I mean, he had that whole truck laid out in his software. Like, he knew every square inch of it. Like, hey, can I fit another bike? Yeah, no, can we put this here? All that kind of stuff. So he was a huge help, and obviously couldn't have done it without him.
Who was handling? So were you and Chris in charge of everything from managing the team and the riders at the races, but also, I mean, what allows a team to get there during the season is what happens in the off season with sponsors and renewals and finding new sponsors. Was that all on your guys' shoulders as well, in addition to running your business?
Well, yeah, a lot of it was. Rock River Close had a lot of relationships already with companies like FMF and things that he was selling through the dealership. So a lot of those, he was able to really spearhead, and but I was the face in the relationships at the races. And, so a lot of that kind of became not so much dealership dependent, because we started developing our own relationships with Little D and those guys and Yamaha and whatnot. So it became a 7-day-a-week job, for sure. And it had to be, on Sundays where, Sundays we're flying home, but there's no time wasted. Like, you're doing whatever you can on the flight to, so, cause I know I had to report to work on Monday to Denney Designs and Roost that, there was no off days.
Yeah.
And,
it's crazy because it's almost like you guys have two separate lives, because again, you've got this customer base in Georgia that has no idea you guys are involved in moto at all, and then it's like you're, by day that's you, and then by night you're this superhero that runs and manages this race team that is famous in the industry and people know who you are, but then you come home and you're the sign lady in your local town that does corporate type work. That's I don't have any idea how the hell you managed that for as many years as you did. What was it like go ahead, please, sorry.
Well, and on top of it, being a mom, and my daughter was 10 when I started this, and she's 22 now. Wow. And, and Chris and I alternated weekends. There was very few weekends that he and I were both at the races together. So, we're together all week. We work together, obviously live together. And then on the weekends, we were tag teaming this whole thing. And my daughter and he are very close because they got to spend a lot of time together. He did a lot of the field trips. He did a lot of the, sleepovers and stuff like that. And also she got to see a lot of the country coming to the races with us that no other, teenager would have. And she was flying by herself at 13. And, so, I mean, as a family, we made it work, but there was a lot of trials and tribulations just to figure out how to make it work. Yeah. And, we had an excellent staff and a much smaller staff than we even have today at the company to make it where we could leave. And if one of us would always be here, but there was times that we both leave, and we just got back from being gone for 10 days after A1. And, we couldn't do that without our guys at the office and ladies too.
Talk to me about the learning curve, the challenges, the hurdles that came along with learning how to be a manager for the riders. Because you and I both are in the client services business, and that can be challenging at times. And that's why I like to work in the moto space, because at least I enjoy the clients that we have, and I get to work with guys like Little D, and that makes it fun. But it's still like you come from this area that you have to keep the client happy. And then you go into this whole new arena to where you're managing this big outfit, but you also have the riders. And I don't think people maybe pay attention to that. And from the time a talented rider is a little kid until they retire, they have to be probably the most selfish human beings on earth. Like everything revolves around their schedule, their body, their performance. Was that a challenge? I mean, it had to have been a challenge. I don't even know if that's a question. Like, how big of a challenge was that for you with the different personality? I mean, you had the Weston Pikes, you had the Alex Martins, and you had the Alex Rays. Like all three completely different types, and those are just some of them. What was that like, learning how to fulfill their needs and demands, and was it just a pain in the ass?
No, I mean, at times, yes, but honestly, I am a people person, and my husband too, and there's a lot of I treated it like a business,
sure,
basically, and each of these individual writers are in the business for themselves, right? So I tried to get them to implement that. You're in the Alex Martin business, or you're in the Alex Ray business. What is going to make you a better business person, but also a better person and better writer? So I think having that, and that also brought a lot of the organization side that I'm really good at, and I implemented that with the writers too. It wasn't like they just didn't see anything behind the scenes. I mean, I tried to share those experiences with them, so once they were gone from my team, they could take those knowledges with them and help them, whatever it is in life, not even so much racing. And I think each rider is definitely different, and you definitely had to approach and come up with creative ideas to fit that one rider, because there's not a one size fits all in this sport. But at the same time, we had the same structure for each rider. We had the same program for when they're on the track for qualifying. Everybody was the same, and maybe we would just zone in on certain areas for each different rider. But as a non-rider, being a team manager in a motor, I mean, it's kind of unheard of, right? Like, whether you're a mechanic that have gone to be like Jeremy Albrecht or somebody like that, where they are a rider, they turn mechanic. Now the evolution is maybe become a team manager or become a trainer or whatever it might be. So my husband being in the rider side helped a lot.
Sure.
I mean, I've been watching races for many, many years, and paid attention, but never really wanted to say I'm going to learn all this stuff, or I'm going to learn how to be a coach or something like that, because basically you're a coach, you're a manager, you're a friend, you're travel agent, whatever it might be. There's all these roles that I was really good at, a very lot of them, and then some of them had to learn. And having listening to the writer's input, but also like, hey, tell me and teach me too, as at the same time. And we always just had each other's back for the most part. And having Chris help, and the evolution of how we did things from 2010 to 2009 are completely different, with the technology and the whole data and filming and learning kind of just along the way. It kind of blows my mind how much it has changed over those 9-10 years.
Yeah. Is there another story even remotely close to yours in the sport from like a team manager perspective? Like, I feel like that's a very unique job that, like, people are always, I'm sure people are like, how did Eric Kehoe get his job? Or how did Jeremy Albrecht get to where he is? But some of those you can kind of track that back with Jeremy being a mechanic and whatnot. Is there anybody that was just a business owner that kind of got this dumped on him and then ended up liking it and being really good at it? I mean, I feel like, let alone that, but you're the first female team owner in the sport, right? I mean, like, there's so many unique aspects to your story.
Right. I mean, Mike Genova, I guess, comes to mind. I don't know. I think he's, maybe he's a fan, and maybe I'm not sure his history on the writing side, if he in fact was a writer, at any level. Yeah. But other than that, I don't know of any.
Yeah. It's cool. I've always, again, your path is really unique, but I think a big thing, and I think people in the industry have a ton of respect for you for being that person, meaning like you're the first female team manager, which I think is really cool, because there are a lot of female fans of the sport, and there are some female entrepreneurs in moto, but not a lot. So when somebody has somebody like you that they can look to, did you ever get any of that feedback from, teenage girls or anything at the races to where people are like, I want to be like Christina Denney? Because I know it's out there. Maybe you didn't come in contact with it.
Yeah. Well, first person that comes to mind is my friend Courtney Lloyd in Canada. And Courtney comes from a motocross family. Her parents own a dealership there in Canada, and she plays a big part of the amateur racing in her community and across Canada. And then also her past with the Motocross of Nations Canadian team. So we're so funny. Like, we saw each other day one, and we're good friends, and we do a lot at the races when we could get together at some things. And she had this story about she was obsessed with me and was so afraid to come up to me and introduce herself, like over a year or so. And then finally at Anaheim, I'm not sure what year it was, we were trying to figure it out. It's 2012 or 13 or something like that. She finally had the nerve to come up to the pit and say, "Hey, is Christina here?" And she said the guys looked at her like, "Yeah, let me go get her." Like, no one ever asks for me, kind of thing. And so I come out, and she's like, "I'm your biggest fan," and like, she was just so excited. I think she said she walked away crying. I'm like, "You are crazy," but we're
awesome.
Just good friends still today. But also, I being involved in the amateur racing. And even at the races, I have had maybe moms or dads and their daughter come up and want to talk and like ask how I got involved. And
that's cool.
I think so. I think at some level, there's hopefully I had, opened up some eyes of some girls of whether they're 10 years old or, starting a career or whatever. They could be 30. Who knows? I don't. It's hopefully I did at some point.
I think the thing that really has stuck the most in my mind about you, that maybe for those that haven't interacted with you, and this might be the first longer form thing they've gotten to consume with you being part of it, is my misconception of who Christina Denney was going to be. When I think initially, like, I had people on my sales team reaching out to you to try to set a meeting for us, and I even was intimidated, like, okay, how is this going to be? Because a lot of times when there is a lady that is in a higher position in business, and a lot of times it's a marketing person for us, they have to be ruthless, right? Because they've got men that are not giving them the respect they deserve. And so I was expecting kind of a ruthless, like, intimidating person, and man, was I wrong. Like, every single time we've ever been in conversation, I've sat down with you and your husband at Snowshoe, West Virginia, like, you are hands down one of the nicest people in the sport. And it was really refreshing. Like, I was immediately, first time we talked, I was like, oh, I don't have to be intimidated by her at all. Like, she's super friendly. So I just wanted to tell you that. I know I haven't ever said that, but you are one of the most genuine, friendly people in the sport. And I think that's why so many of the riders, as well as the industry people, probably love you as much as they do. So I think that's a big thing for you, which is cool.
Well, I appreciate it. And, I generally am not that type of person anyway. And, in my just my hometown or with my friends or whatever. So I've always just, and I don't think, I never really played a conscious decision to, but, I wanted to be accepted, in this men dominated sport, but I felt like, okay, I never really needed to be, I was listened to, I was heard, whether it was from MX Sports or Feld or other team managers. I don't feel like they ever shunned me off, but I just was, just be yourself and see what happens. And I guess that's where we're at.
Yes.
But I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah,
that's
of
really
course.
nice of you.
Yeah. A good example. So somebody that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, she's been nothing but just awesome to me, scares me to death to this day, and I've known her since I was a kid. Carrie Coombs.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say
that's what I was. I love her to death. She treats me wonderfully. She takes care of us at the GNCC races. We've done a lot of work for her. I am still shaking in my boots when I go into Carrie's office, and I know she likes that. That's how she likes to keep it.
I think everybody is. And I respect Carrie a lot, and I've seen all sides of Carrie when she's had to get mean and get straightforward, but I respect her for that. And she is definitely, she's got a lot on her shoulders. And
No
I
doubt.
think,
Somebody's
she's in a
gotta
different
manage,
role.
Davey.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yeah. Well, all right. So the team thing, it's just an incredible story to me, going from, just having the design company and then getting into the team, but then you took a step away from the sport, really, as far as you still had Roost MX, but you stepped away from the race team. You went back to focusing more on the business, and let's talk a little bit about that. But you've recently gotten back involved, so kind of talk to me about that transition from team to I'm focusing back on the business to now there's rumors that people have seen you at the races again. Can you talk about that?
It was probably mid-year of 2019 that Chris and I started talking about that we think maybe, it's time to kind of put our business forward and be done with the racing. And we both, thought long and hard about it. And we came to the decision, we let the owner know at Supercross of 19 that this would be our last season, that we would see the year through, obviously. Actually, at the end of the year, Yamaha invited us to go out to Japan as a last race and kind of a thank you for everything that we done and travel with Yusuke,
Wow.
the Japanese rider. And it was just an awesome way to end our racing experience.
Yeah.
And then we had a little layover in Hawaii for a couple of days too. So, that was
rough.
nice.
That's rough.
But it was well deserved. We hadn't taken a vacation together in a long time because we were racing, and it was fun. So, hindsight, did we had known, COVID wasn't an issue. All this stuff, as 2020 turned around, it turned into what it was, and so it was good timing, I think, for everybody for our stuff, and our business boomed after COVID hit, and just like a lot of the outdoor recreational sports did. And it would have been really, really hard, even more so to do both. And, to be gone at Salt Lake or forever, I couldn't have done that. So, it just, the timing's everything. And it really was in this case. So focusing on the business, 2020, 21, going well, working full time, kind of going back to amateur races. I would go to, like, say, Mini-O's or Loretta's, and a lot of people didn't even know who I was because of all these influx of new families. Right. So it was kind of nice to get in front of that again and, talk to people, talk to new customers, we had 50 riders that are now pro guys along the way that, that we were involved with all of their amateur racing. And so, it's just, I miss that. Yeah. And I wasn't able to do that with pro racing. So it was fun, and it kind of brought back to me a little bit of life into Roost. And I was, definitely more involved, and I still really am today on the Roost side. So we kind of got to this point, and last year when I was at the Redbud with Mike Pelletier with AMA, I flew in to start discussing Motocross of Nations because I still am involved with that pretty heavily. And we started talking and, started talking about what Supercross would look like next year with FIM not being involved. And, we talked about a lot of stuff, and he had some really cool ideas about bringing, kind of like the riders and the AMA and the paddock kind of back together again. There was a lack of communication, a lack of inconsistency with what the AMA is for the riders. Generally it is, they're there for them, but I mean, sometimes AMA, if they have a bad rap, it's just people don't know. And right. So after talking to him and, he'd asked me if I would be involved to, maybe facilitate this and what this role would look like. And, I said I would like to be, but I needed more information, and it was a full-time thing, and I just wasn't able to commit to something like that. So I suggested, why don't you call Jeremy Albrecht? He's awesome person for this role. I think, he understands the sport way more than I do, but also maybe he's working at JGR, but maybe this is something that he could do on the weekends. And
okay, so he is still at JGR. That was a question I had when I knew he was involved. And you turned Mike on to that. I didn't realize that came from you. That's cool.
Yeah, well, when he was telling me what he was looking for, I said, there's a few people that I could think of, and
Yeah.
Jeremy was really the only one that was going to be available, before he even talked to Jeremy, and I said, why don't you call him and figure out what this role is, and we kind of came up with this. He came up with this rider rep. It's like a liaison between the paddock and AMA, and with John Gallagher being gone, everybody kind of in that truck has absorbed, like Tooley and Mike Pelletier, and then now this rider rep, whether it's Jeremy or I, we've kind of absorbed that role, and it's just like a more of a approachable. It's definitely we're just trying to create this communication where people were intimidated maybe before to come and to talk, whether it's whomever, and Mike Pelletier is probably the most laid back guy, but he's also, he's very understanding of what the rules are, but he also has this amazing team that work with the AMA behind him that no one sees. And as a team manager for 10 years, I'm observant to what goes on that floor, but until you wear that headset and hear all the chatter all night, all day about what it takes to really run that floor, it is pretty spectacular. So, Jeremy, they actually called Jeremy. He thought about it, and he ended up taking the role, and but said, there was a few races that he was going to have to miss because his two boys are racing, and he's taking them to a lot of races, and they're going to take a shot at making it to Loretta's in March, where the qualifiers and everything are on the weekends. He said he's not going to miss that.
Yeah.
And so Mike Pelletier called and said, hey, Jeremy's going to take the job, but would you consider doing these 4 races while Jeremy's out, but also come to the first 2, and then there's a couple other races maybe even throughout the year that I may go to, but that Jeremy or I will both be at.
Okay.
But so it's a new position.
Yeah.
But Jeremy he's excellent at it, and obviously he's well known in the paddock much more than I am.
Yeah, but
and
both of you, I
also,
feel like if that's going to be a new position that they put together, putting people like Jeremy or like yourself in that, as opposed to just another person from the AMA, like neither one of you were racers, but you're the next best thing to it, as far as, in my opinion, riders looking at you as somebody that would have their best interest in mind, because you used to work for the riders essentially. So I feel like you've got two, the best people they could find. Was that why do you have any idea, is that why they picked folks like yourself as opposed to just other corporate AMA individuals?
Yeah, they wanted someone that was going to be familiar face to the riders.
Yeah.
And then also someone that had the knowledge of the rider's perspective and the team's perspective, or, really just the riders in general, from privateers to factory teams, everybody in the paddock. And I even, I think that was a big part of it. Like you're saying, they have a great staff and they could have moved somebody in this position, but I don't think at the end of the day they would achieve what their end goal is to make it approachable. And, there's going to be hard decisions to be made. And I it's not one person making the decision. And I think that's obviously the best thing, is to have, the 3 people that, it's fair. Everybody brings their input, and, hopefully it all works out. But
yeah, I love it. That's awesome.
But it was fun working with them. The first 2 races I was beat, I had a bit on my feet all day.
Yeah.
And it was long days. Anaheim was pretty exciting with a lot of contacts and stuff like that. And, it was right off the bat, it was, learning experience. And I think for all of us, it was pretty successful. And going into each round knowing it's going to be different, every single round, there's never going to be the same. And but to be accepted by the AMA staff and the workers, and that's what's cool about too. Jeremy and I have known these people for quite some time, maybe on a first name basis, maybe not, but they know us and we know them, and they all have their role. And it is it's such a organized event, but it takes everybody there, every single person, to make it go smooth.
Yeah. It's great to see that you're back in the sport. It was I had hoped when I knew you had stepped away that, you bring a valuable piece to and component to the sport. And it's cool that, and same with Jeremy Albrecht. I mean, it's sad when, he wasn't going to be involved at any capacity for, after JGR, but it's awesome that both of you are back in the sport. I think it makes the sport better. And that's exciting. And hopefully that role, blossoms into something that you want it to be, which is great. It's man, your story's just so interesting, and you've done so many cool things, and you're still pushing right along with Roost. We're working on a really cool project with you. I'm really excited. You're one of the big supporters of my mountain bike race team that competes in the GNCC series. You and your husband got into e-biking last year, and we met at Snowshoe and had a really cool conversation, and we're doing some cool stuff with you. So hopefully we get to get you out to a couple of the GNCCs this year when you have all the spare time that you have on your hands. I know you can find some time to get out there, obviously, but hopefully we can get you out there and ride with you. And I'm just looking forward to continuing to follow what you guys do this year and beyond. It's exciting stuff for sure.
Well, thanks. Actually, in our office, we have a big wall calendar, and just yesterday I had one of my girls. I've never added GNCC racing to our schedule, and it's on every round. We put it on the calendar. And
awesome.
We're going to see what's not conflicting with some of my other obligations with Supercross, and we definitely will be attending, and we're excited. And I was talking to Kelly yesterday from MX Sports and telling her what we're doing, and she's been trying to get me to come out to a GNCC forever. So to be involved with your program, and this is a new thing for us to do the e-bike graphics, and locally we're doing really well with it, and because we're out here riding and people are seeing it, and it's just like anything else. We've never pushed anything to just happen overnight, and we're wanting to make sure that we have the product dialed and the designs dialed and everything else before we start doing any kind of mass push. But a couple of our amateur kids that have the Levos all got new bikes for Christmas, and some graphics to go along with it. So it's a cool product, but to be able to come out with a debut with your team is, it kind of just brings us up to the next level already without having to kind of do a lot of the homework and the grind that we had to do with Moto. And so awesome. We're obviously really excited about that, and meeting your team and kind of just seeing things from a different racing perspective, because we love racing no matter what it is. And I can't wait to show up at one of those. Yeah.
If maybe somebody listening is caught on, but maybe you can see a common theme here, everybody. My master plan is working. I'm having her go down the same road she did with Rock River, and my master plan is actually get her to show up to Georgia and then just surprise her that she is now the team manager of the Impact Michelin Walmsley Cycles e-bike team, and then she'll be the biggest thing in e-biking as well. So it's working out perfectly well. I'm kidding, obviously.
Well,
no, don't worry. We're excited to work with you, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And again, I'm excited to see what you guys do this year at Supercross, and I'm grateful for our friendship, and it's just been really cool to learn about you and your husband and everything you guys have done. And I think people are going to enjoy hearing your story. So I appreciate you making time for us.
Oh, anytime. Awesome. I love talking with you, and it's, being at the races kind of did bring back a lot of memories this last few weeks, and I've missed seeing everybody, and I can't wait to make it to my next one. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for being on with us today, and we're looking forward to talking to you here soon, Christina. Thanks, Luke. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impact Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpact.com. That's THINKIMPAKT.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.